The next thing to look at is the active depth concept. Now, the active depth is a plane parallel to the screen in each view on which data points are entered. The active depth must be within the display depth of a view. The active depth has a significant effect on where elements are placed, and it can be very useful for some drawing operations. Two important points about the active depth. First, by default, data points which are not snapped to other elements are located at the active depth in the view where you place a data point. And we'll see this happening very shortly. And secondly, each view has its own active depth, which is set for each individual view. Clearly, the first point can have a significant impact on where elements are located. Data points placed in a view without reference to another element will always be located at the active depth of that view. This can be quite useful if you need to place elements on a specific plane without reference to the other elements in the design. In contrast, tentative points can be located anywhere in the design cube without regard to the active depth plane. In fact, you use this concept when you drew the step block. Now, to set the active depth, you need at least two views open and which are perpendicular to each other, either vertically or horizontally. For example, to set the active depth in the front view, you could use a front view and a top view combination, which is vertically perpendicular, or a front view and a right view combination, which is horizontally perpendicular. Now, as an exercise, let's set the active depth in the top view. First, we need to start the tool for setting the active depth, and that is here. That is the Set Active Depth icon. And note that I've actually turned off a few of the tools on my View toolbox, so I can see this particular tool. So click on that. So the tool is activated. Notice there's nothing in the tool settings window at all, but do watch the prompts in the status line. And the first prompt is to select the view. This means select the view where you want to set the active depth. This will be the top view. So I'm going to left click in the top view. And as soon as I do, the other three views display the active depth graphically. I need to snap it to something. I'm going to snap it to the top left corner of the front view. Left click on that. Now the active depth should now be set on this plane, which is the top plane of my step block. Let's find out. I'm going to start a circle, and I will place a circle in the top view since that's where I've just set the active depth. So I left click and drag, and there's my circle. I notice that it is in place in that top plane of the step block. We can see it here as well. We can see the line. Let me make this a little more obvious. Let's change the circle to red so we can see it a little better. And we see the circle in the plane of that top surface in all three views. And I'll do this again actually. I'm going to undo it, delete it. When I place a circle, notice that the compass is in view orientation, meaning that the compass is parallel to the view itself. If you try this yourself and you see the compass in any other orientation than this, just press V at the keyboard to change the compass orientation to view. We need a flat plane in that view for this circle. Now let's check to see if the active depth is where it's supposed to be. I'm going to click on this tool, which is Show Active Depth. And I need to select a view. I'll select the top view. Down below on the status line, I can read the active depth for view number 1 is, in my case, 10 inches. And that's 10 inches above the global origin. This makes sense since I made the height of the stack block 10 inches. If you're working in metric, you should see 250 instead. So we know that the active depth is where it's supposed to be. Now at this point, you should practice setting the active depth in other views and placing elements to confirm the locations you set. Can you see the advantage here? If you need to draw planar elements, i.e. 2D elements, in a specific plane in the design, setting the active depth at this plane can make their placement much easier. AccuDraw and the ACS system do the same thing independent of the active depth, but you still have occasions when you want to use the active depth for placing elements. And just one final point, of course, I could place a circle by snapping it to a data point in a view. So in this case, I'm placing it in the front view. The compass is in view orientation, so I will see a vertical circle snapped to this corner point. That has nothing to do with the active depth of the front view. However, set your own active depths in the front and the right at different locations on the step block and draw some elements for yourself.